All right, well, let's get started. So the name of this session is Injury Prevention and Early Intervention through Lean Manufacturing. And I'm Chet Brandon. We'll talk about me more here in a minute, but I'm excited to be here. And this is the second year for the summit, Shelby? Yeah.
Yeah, our second one.
How many attendees, roughly?
I believe we had like 300 sign up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how many are actually here today. But we've had definitely those who showed interest and signed up doubled from last year. For those of you who were here last year, we appreciate you coming back. And this year we're getting CEUs for it, which is even better. So.
I tell you, it's exciting to see this society come together, and we'll talk more about my history, but I have learned the value of athletic trainers in industry, and I'm excited to see you guys beginning to formalize that process. So it's great stuff. All right, let's keep going because I got a lot of cool stuff I want to talk about. Okay, a little bit about me. So I'm at this point, about 33 years, environmental health safety professional, mostly in heavy industry. My background is Bachelor of Business Administration and Economics, Master of Science in Safety Technology. And then because I saw the innate connection and intricate connection between industrial processes and people, I went back to school to learn more about how to help people be as successful as possible in these jobs. And that was why I got the degree in industrial and organizational psychology, all from Marshall University. Hopefully we have a few grads on there and on here today, and go Herd. And then in that 30 years, I had a unique opportunity to be in your industry, to be part of what you do. And that was my time as VP of Operations for ATI Worksite Solutions. And I did that for 5 years and really enjoyed it. Before that, I was a customer of ATI, utilizing ATs in a manufacturing assembly environment. And that's when I learned the value of ATs and the unique skill set that you guys bring, which includes not only understanding the physical nature of work and the human body and how the two interplay, but also the mental aspects of it. Being an athlete, which is where you guys started, your profession started, is very much a mental game as much as a physical game. And while it's probably at its most most severe, and that's not the right word, but most intricate in the athletic environment, there is a mental aspect to industrial operations as well, and you guys get that. So that was a great period in my life, and at one point we had about 300 ATs that was in my organization, serving 100 different clients. So it was a busy time. It was a busy time, and I see some faces here that were part of that. So currently, though, I'm the corporate director of global EHS and S. The second S is for sustainability at GrafTech International, and we make some large critical components for the steel and other metals industries that relate to their electric arc furnace operations. So that's the furnace that makes the hot metal that gets made into everything else. So I'm in that industry, and I'm a heavy industry type guy, so I enjoy that work. And then finally, I'm a cyclist. I like road bike and mountain biking. I'm a pilot. I like to fly airplanes. That's the picture. I like to hike, and I'm a science fiction buff. So that's a little bit about me, just some background. And I love heavy industry and industry in general. I've been in it, as I said, for many years, and it's been a rewarding environment. And I love seeing new people come into industry, like you guys, becoming part of it. It's a good way of life. It's a good living. Being around people that have the skill and will to get things done and make a product is, I think, pretty exciting. So hopefully you find that too. All right. So why are you here? Well, there are some important themes for this conference. Are you feeling like just another brick in the wall? Well, let's take care of that. Let's find a way to stand out, get loose, be inspired, and be part of this summit. So I'm glad to be here. I pulled a few pictures here just showing, and you guys know this because you're living it, but some ATs in action here, and I might even know a couple of those ATs anyway. That picture with ATI actually is in the workplace that I started with learning about athletic trainers in industry. So that's why I put that picture on there. But anyway, I'm going to do what I can to inspire you here a little bit, or at least educate you. Now, Shelby, are we going to be able to do this survey? I don't know how to do it. If not, we can just talk through it.
Yeah, let's talk through it.
Okay, I had a thought there of asking you guys to give me answers, but maybe they can put it in a text, right, Shelby? Can they text it to us, just a few? So here's the question. How many of you are working in a site that currently has a lean manufacturing or Six Sigma program?
Yeah, so if you guys want to just answer in the chat and we can read it off to chat.
Maybe.
We have a maybe.
Yeah. 2 sites with lean manufacturing, very good. There's a no, there's a yes. Not at your current site. Tina, you probably were at other sites. There's a no. Okay, so I'm getting a feel it's about 50%. About half are aware of something, the other half not sure or don't know. Even if you don't have, both are foreign companies, okay. Even if you don't have a 5S a lean manufacturing program or 6S, you can still apply these concepts. So we'll talk about that. Let's keep going though. Okay, so a couple words on terminology here. The title is around lean manufacturing, and I'll talk about that first. But often out in industry, there is a second component added to it, which I'll cover briefly just so you're aware of it. So the way things have evolved, it's turned into lean manufacturing plus Six Sigma, or sometimes called Lean Six Sigma. So I'll explain all that in a bit. So you may hear me flip back and forth between lean manufacturing, and Six Sigma. Know that it's parts of the same process. But let's start with lean, because that's what I was asked to first share with you guys. So background on lean methods. Well, it was pioneered by Toyota. And the background to that is the guy that started Toyota was pretty interested in efficiency. And that's kind of in the Japanese culture. They very much appreciate efficiency. And so when he began the company, it first started making sewing machines, by the way, sewing machines and the things that make, you use yarn to make textiles, textile mills. That's the origins of Toyota. And it was actually Toyota back then with a D. But anyway, they got into automobiles, cars. And Mr. Toyota was interested or fascinated with Henry Ford. So believe it or not, lean manufacturing, as created by Toyota, began with his visit to a Ford factory. And what he was impressed with was how Henry Ford could take a lump of ore, put it in his factory, and by the end of the week, 7 days later, it was part of a car rolling off the assembly line. He thought that was very, very efficient. So he got interested in that. And then there's other, he benchmarked a lot of different operations to come up with it, but I'm not going to go through all that, but know that focused on efficiency. After the Second World War, it became even more important because he didn't have, his factories were in rough shape. He didn't have a lot of cash. The economy was in ruins. They needed to get the most value out of every yen, I guess they would have spent to create their product. So hyper focus on efficiency. Other Japanese manufacturers saw how good it worked and how well it matched their existing paradigms in how to produce things in Japan. So they took it up as well. Okay, now along comes the late 70s, early 1980s. In the late 70s, of course, we began to have problems with fuel. Remember the fuel crisis? And maybe some of you guys didn't live through that. I did. I was young, but I did live through it. And it changed the Western world. Up to that point, we weren't worried about fuel. We had plenty of it. But then we didn't. And the Japanese cars were very fuel efficient in keeping with their paradigm of efficiency. So they got a foothold in the US. And as they kept getting more and more market share, the Western car manufacturers realized, hey, these things are well made. They're very inexpensive, yet they make good money on them. This is a problem for US the US manufacturing industry. So they began to study the process, and it became known as the Toyota Production System, TPS. And then later, other names formed, just-in-time production, which is actually part of TPS, flow production, And then finally, it's become known as lean manufacturing. That's the common name. It's very much a systems-oriented process, as you'll see, and it's very focused on identifying waste and eliminating it. And there's a picture of a modern Toyota production line. All right, keeping going here. And if anybody has questions, just ask and put on the text there, and I'll answer it. Now, there is a key tie-in with lean manufacturing that relates to you guys and what you do, and somewhat to what I do, and that is respect for people. That is a basic tenet of lean manufacturing, is people are valuable. People are important. People are a critical part of the process, just like the machines and the products and the raw materials and the factory. All those things must be used efficiently. So the concept is that we do not want to waste any human potential. And there's really two types of waste as it relates to respect for people. The first type is injuring people. It is wasteful to injure people, not to mention it is immoral, and our society frowns upon it as it should. But, we're talking context of lean here. So it's a waste to hurt people. It's also a waste not to utilize them to their full capability, both physically and mentally, in a way that is beneficial to them and the company. So respect for people has these three tenets. All type of wasteful activities are eliminated from the plant floor. Nobody gets hurt. People are doing valuable, meaningful jobs. People have the ability to stop production lines when things are going wrong. We want them to engage their brain, and they look at it and say, hey, we're making defective products, stop the line. Or, hey, there's a risk here we can't live with, stop the line. They call it jidoka. I'll throw in some of these Japanese terms because you still hear them every now and then. But basically, unlike in the US, where especially years ago, it's better now, but we would continue to operate. Just keep going, we'll fix it at some point. The Japanese philosophy is stop the line and fix it now. Don't make defective products, don't get people hurt. And lastly, they value small group input. Workers that are on the line, like these two fellows here working underneath this car, they want their input. They want to know, how can this process be made better? By the way, you guys are ATs. Tell me two things that you think could be focused on to improve the operation in that picture. Somebody put it in the text or the safety. Yes. Specifically what? Put your AT skills to work here. Where are these guys going to be sore at the end of their shift? Overhead work, you got it. Micro breaks, yes. Height of work, yes. Reaching overhead, yes. Wrists, yes. The guy in the background there looks like he's got an awkward posture going on. Yeah, so there's always opportunities for improvement. Those were great observations. And those would fit in well with a 5S event, which we'll talk about in a minute. All right, keeping us moving. So what is this magic thing called lean? Well, it focuses on reducing waste, as I said. Next focus is improving the flow of products and material through the process, maximum efficiency of production, right? Keeping the value of people in mind, and increasing the speed of the process. Time is money, right? Time is money in industry. So the more we can make in less amount of time, the better we're doing. There are 5 general steps here. Number 1 is specify the value of each action. What is the value of this part of the process? Number 2, identify, okay, out of all these processes, what creates the value for the customer? What is the customer willing to pay for? Then what you're doing with that is you're finding waste. And some of those steps are going to be wasteful, and we're going to change those steps or eliminate them. More about that in a bit. Once you've gotten those wasteful steps out, okay, now let's figure out how can we flow the most product through this line as quickly as possible, still maintaining quality, safety, and then finally, and then we use pull to, once we get the flow coming so well, so it's flowing well, then we want to make sure that we're only pulling the products when we need them. Otherwise, we're going to generate inventory, and that's another problem. We'll come back to that. And then finally, target perfection. What the Japanese mean by that, as we in the Western world interpret it, is continuous improvement. You're always going back, looking for ways to improve this thing. And it starts with the employees who do it every day, giving you suggestions, and then management tries to figure out Can we address the issue they brought up, or can we do what they're asking us to do? So that is a lean system. Now, you might be wondering, okay, how do we involve ourselves in that? Well, I think there's 7 parts of lean that you would be able to involve yourself in. I've certainly seen safety professionals involve themselves in these, and some ATs back in my ATI days. So we're going to go through these in detail, but I'll read them off to you here. So number 1 is the elimination of waste, and that very much is the core of lean. Identify and remove waste. Number 2 is 5S processes, which is a visual management system to improve the workplace and ensure efficiency. More to follow on that. Next is standard work. That is a method identifying the most effective method to do the work efficiently, keep people safe, make sure the quality is in it. And that's considered standard work. And then Kaizen. Kaizen is rapid change or continuous improvement. And that is an interesting opportunity for you to get involved in some project work. Then there's Gemba walks. This is typically done by management. And this is how they go to the Gemba. Gemba means work floor in Japanese. That means get your butt out of your chair and onto the work floor and see how the work's really getting done. And then the last 2, flexible workforce, which somebody mentioned micro breaks or rotating stations when we were talking about those 2 fellows underneath the car. That's an example of flexible work. And then finally, tier meetings. All right, let's get into it. So the 8 wastes in Japanese, these are called muda. You want to get the muda out of the system. So you can see there's 8 types. Number 1 is defects. Making defective products or providing defective services is the greatest waste of all. You've put all the employees' energy into making this thing. You've put all the physical energy into it if it's a product, electricity and hydraulic presses and all that. And then at the end of the line, you find out it's defective. You have wasted a monumental amount of time and energy and money. So the first waste that's always looked at is getting defects out of the process and controlling defects. Next is overproduction. Producing too much is a problem. If it's not ready for use, we don't need it yet. Therefore, if we produced it, now it's got to sit somewhere, and that creates one type of inventory. Inventory is expensive. There's money in the physical item. You've got to have some place to put it. That costs money. You got to have somebody to put it there and keep track of it. That costs money. You got the motion to get it and retrieve it and all that. So overproduction is another waste. Waiting. If you have people waiting or equipment waiting that could be productively making parts, that is a waste. So we try to minimize waiting, people, equipment. Next is unused talent. We talked a little bit about that already. We want to get the most useful value out of our employees and for our employees, right? It's not just about extracting it out of them. It's about providing them a job that they want to have in the future and they feel fulfilled with it. So that is recognized as one of the wastes. Next is transportation. Moving stuff around, whether it's by truck or fork truck or train or plane or robot, whatever you're doing to move it around, it's a waste. The less movement you have, the better. And that's why you see some of the most efficient plants have a very, very close design. Each process is close to the next one. And often that's the way plants start out, is they're designed like that. And then as time goes on and new products are added and new equipment's added, but it doesn't fit there, so now we got to put it over here. Then you get these crazy spaghetti type flows of material through the site. All that's a waste. Transportation is to be minimized to the greatest extent possible. I mentioned inventory of overproducing parts, but there's also an inventory of raw materials, inventory of other associated equipment like boxes to put your product in or whatever. The goal is to reduce inventory to the lowest level possible. And there's money in all that, and we talked about that. So inventory is another thing you keep your eye on. Now, this next one, motion, that's a great one for ATs because we're talking about human motion here. Other types of motion are considered transportation. So that's equipment and machines and all that. We're talking about people motion here. So ideally, every workstation will be situated such that the work is directly in front of them, preferably around their belly, and they can work here. They can reach over just out of out of the way of the actual process. Reach over to the bin and get the next part and put it in. Reach over to this bin, put it in. Don't have to stand up. Don't have to, reach way over here to get it. The idea is to design a workstation that allows the person to comfortably reach all the stuff that he or she needs to get the job done. Now, we know in reality, some workstations just don't lend themselves to that level of economy of motion. But the closer you get to it, the better. And this is something you guys have an innate ability to look at, right? So obviously it starts with ergonomics. You guys know more than ergonomics, but ergonomics is the starting point. What is the standard reach and what is the best zone for the bicep to lift these parts? You guys know all that. You know it well, and you know the injury mechanisms that can cause it, and you know how to design the work so that the recovery processes, are effective. So that's a key one for you guys to get involved in, motion. And then finally is extra processing. What this means is either the equipment or the service has not been performed properly, and so we've got to do more work to it. We've got to go back and fix something. We've got to put a new set of screws in it because the screws were bad or whatever. So that's one type of extra processing. The other, and this is something else you guys can get involved in, is when the designers of the products are creating the product itself. Have they designed in too much work relative to the job it does? Is it too intricate of a piece relative to what it's doing? And you'll see this through employees having to spend inordinate amounts of time trying to get all these screws in it, and you got to line it up just right. And God, this thing's difficult to do just to hold a headlight in place. So you'll see that after it's already been done, and you can take it back as part of the 5S or Kaizen process back to the designers and say, hey, there's a problem here. More importantly, there's an opportunity to improve this, because over processing or extra processing costs time and money. So the last two, I think, are critical ones for you to be aware of. Okay, so how do you do all this? Well, more to follow. Here's how the typical 5S process works. First of all, it's a process and method for creating and maintaining an organized, clean, and high-performing workplace. High-performing means productivity, quality, and safety, not necessarily in that order. All three of those matter equally. In fact, keeping people safe from a society standpoint matters the most. Next is 5S enables anyone to distinguish between normal and abnormal conditions at a glance. That's a key part of 5S. It's very visual. You should be able to look at the process and say, yeah, it's running pretty good today. Things are flowing, everything's in its place, everything has a place. Employees don't seem stressed. Their postures, they're not in awkward postures and seem to be working hard, overly hard. So it's a very visual process. So back to that in a minute. It is a foundation for continuous improvement, zero defects, cost reduction, and maintaining a safe work area, which will be part of your main tie-in. And then finally, it's a systematic way to improve the workplace, the processes, and the products through frontline employee involvement. So this is back to the mental aspect of industrial operations. So it's key for employees to enjoy the work, to feel like they're part of the team. You have to listen to them, right? You have to provide opportunities for them to tell you things, and then equally important, do something about what they're telling you. And 5S is a good way to do that. All right, so there are 5 steps. This is why it's called 5S. Step 1 is sort the material, right? So take a workstation, sort out, segregate, and eliminate. Siri is the Japanese word for it. Clearly distinguish between needed items from unnecessary items and eliminate what is not needed. And by needed, we mean the absolute minimum. What is the minimum amount of material they need to do their work? Tools, parts, whatever. You want it to be very focused and very efficient. Next is set in order, Satan. Arrange and identify. Arrange needed items so they can be found quickly by anybody. So that's the ordered workplace. You don't have to go searching for tools. You can see over there's where it's stored. That's what I need. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to put it back when I'm done. Next is shine, saitsu. create a spotless workplace. This is also the first step where we talk about safety. Part of shining, so the end of the day, they clean up the material, maybe some spilled parts here and there, which, by the way, is another opportunity for improvement. Sweep up a little dust that got created. And also they notice, hey, we spilled some oil on the floor over there. That's a slip hazard. We need to clean that up. Or, hey, that guard got damaged. When I was sweeping under it, I realized it. I need to get that fixed. That's part of the shine process. Next is standardize. Sekitsu, constant adherence to the first 3 steps and safety. So standardized cleanup activities. This is where you start to see standard work, which we'll talk about in more detail. But standard work is the best way that we found to do a particular job. In this case, it is the first 3 steps of 5S. And then finally, there's sustain, Shitsuki, achieve habitual compliance. Often this is done through management reviews, going out there, watching the team go through their 5S process. It's audits and inspections. Management does it, but so do the employees. They do it for themselves, making sure that, hey, you know, we're getting this done. We're following our standard work. And the more visual you can make all these steps, the better. And I'll show an example of that in a minute. Now, you may hear the term 6S. 6S is this same process, except some companies choose to pull safety out as the 6th step. Now, safety is part of these first 5 steps. So 5S and 6S are the same thing. But some companies believe that they need to put the emphasis on safety. And that would be a visual emphasis. So they'd be adding to this a 6th step, which is to review the workplace for visual hazards. Everybody wearing their PPE. Are the floors clean and we don't have trip and slip hazards? Are all the tools safe for use? Is there a hammer over there? It's about to, you know, the head's about to splinter. Those type of things. Okay, keeping going. So how do you use all this? Participate in 5S development activities. So if you hear of a 5S team getting formed or a 5S program getting created, especially those of you that don't already have them in your workplace, you want to be part of that. You've got a lot to contribute. You understand the basics of it. You'll learn more through the process, and you're gonna bring them a unique perspective that will matter. Number 2, make sure you're involved in conducting the regular 5S assessments of the work cells. Be part of that, either the management version of it or the employees themselves, whichever they're using, probably both. You want to be part of that, again, to bring your unique perspective. And of course, the whole point of being involved in it is to point things out, to offer improvement suggestions, to help identify opportunities for improvement, and then give them suggestions on how to resolve that. And you know, your area of expertise will be around safety, health, and well-being. Although don't sell yourself short, you'll also contribute to productivity as well, and possibly even quality. I'll tell a quick story about Sheila Denman here. So I had her out to a plant that I was the leader for. It's an aircraft manufacturing plant. We're walking through the plant. They had a lean process. And Sheila, we stopped to do this one, to look at this one workstation, which was an employee putting a door on an airplane. And obviously some ergonomic opportunities there. He's hoisting the door up. He's got to hold the door. He's got the rivet gun. You know, he's a lot going on. And so we talked about all that. She said, Chet, there's another issue there, though. Do you see that? And I said, I'm stuck on the ergonomic stuff. What do you see? She said, look at the way he's flipping his glasses up and leaning in, and look at all that extra motion. He needs a new prescription in his glasses. He can't see the screws. So I went back later and talked to that employee and started asking him about that. He goes, yeah, these are 10 years old and I've been meaning to get a new one, but you know, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, great observation there, right? And that's right in your all skill set wheelhouse as healthcare professionals. So I always remembered that from Sheila. Okay, let's look at an example here. So on the left side, you see a un-5S'd area, right? That's where they started from. On the right side, you see the finished one. But let's stay on the left side for a minute. So now these two pictures, the angle's a little different, but I think it is the same workplace. They just, the right side is just a bigger picture. But looking at the left side here, so thinking of those 5S principles, let me see in the chat, give me a couple examples of what you see as opportunities for 5S improvement here. Improved lighting. Good one, Lex. Absolutely. What else? A lot of clutter on the tables. Thank you, Tina. Yes. Shelby, messy tables. Yep. Lex, no open space. Yeah. Increased space. Yes. Thanks, Aaron. Okay. No space to work. Yes. All these are great ones. So yeah, look at that yellow table in front. Number one, waste elimination. Thank you, Patty. Look at that yellow table. What is all that stuff on top of it? It's probably old parts, half of which are no longer useful. Clutter, yes. So the first thing that needs to be done here is the sorting, right? We're going to sort it out. What needs to be kept in this area? And we'll get all that stuff out first. Notice there's even something under the table. Why is the table even there? It's up against this welding curtain. That's probably a welding station over here further to the left. There's not even enough room to work in this area. That has just become a catch-all for clutter. So yeah, we're going to do the clutter. It also, does it look clean in terms of shining? You know, does the floor look clean? No, obviously it's got stuff on it. It's dirty. It's old. The lighting was already mentioned. That's bad. If you look at the part shelf in the background there, that stuff doesn't look like it has any assemblage of order to it, right? It's just stuff stuck on the shelf. You can't tell what work is actually supposed to be performed here. I see some welding bottles laying around, so that you got to do something with welding, I guess. On the back there by that red cabinet, you can see somebody stuck what looks like a grinder disc, just stuck it up against the wall. Looks like there's a belt or something hanging there. Very disorganized, right? So the first three steps, set, sort, set, and shine, that's what we're going to focus on. Now, go to the right-hand side. This is after they've done the improvement. So what do you notice here first? What's the first thing that comes to your eye? Put it in the chat. Large space, yep, more space, cleaner, lighting's better, more inviting environment, yep, the mental aspect, yep, better organized, yes. Yellow lines on the floor, Tina, thank you. Yes, less risks, right. So first of all, visually, can you tell if this workspace on the right is in good shape today? Does it look like it's ready to do whatever they do in there? Yes. So visually, you can see we've got the safe walkway, which is usually the very first thing that gets done in 5S is to create the safe walkway. Yellow lines, sometimes it's painted green in the center, sometimes it's a different color, yellow lines with green or blue center is what you normally see, but every site can do it different. There's no law on what the color scheme is. But yeah, you've got a nice safe walkway. We've got two nice tables here set up, uncluttered, plenty of room to work. You can see we've got 4 vice grips there so they can do their work. This is obviously a maintenance area. We can see that those work tables are where they're going to do a lot of their work. So they've provided their employees those ergonomic anti-fatigue mats, which is a good idea. We can see in the foreground here that they've marked off some yellow areas for some kind of operations. Maybe that's their welding stations. In the background, we can see a lathe, looks like a lathe maybe, or some other equipment. And it's hard to see it well, but it looks like it's neat and orderly. There's not a lot of extra stuff around. This is a pretty good job. Now, there are some opportunities for improvement here. Look at this. They've got some little piece of equipment here. It could be a welder, and it's just sitting underneath the table. Well, if that's important for them, it should have a place and it should be marked. So that would be an opportunity for improvement. If we opened up these cabinets, we may still find clutter. What we'd like to see is the minimum amount of stuff they need to do their job in an assigned place with a label that indicates how much of that should be on the shelf. That would be the next step for these guys. Pretty good effort overall. Let's look at another one. So here's an example of a shadow board. Shadow boards are good for organizing tools and other materials that are needed. So there's good and bad in this example. The good is it's a good shadow board, right? All the equipment that they need to do their job has been identified on here, we assume, with a shadow so you can see what it is, names above it, and what it looks like, and then go find that. But there are some problems with this shadow board as well. And put it in the chat what you see. Missing items. Yep. That's the big one, right? Random items in the wrong place. You guys got it. That's the two big things here. Yeah, we got stuff that's missing. Where are the SNPs? Why are they not there? Even more important, why are we using the SNPs storage area to store whatever these labels are? That's a problem. Why is this tool here in the knife storage area? Why is this measuring device in the deburring tool space? Where is the other collet cleaner? Why are there two wrenches here? So see, immediately, visually, you can look at this and say, okay, it's a good effort, but we got some work to do here. Number one, we got to go find our missing tools because those are needed. And number two, we got to figure out why we have extra tools. Labels include another language. Yeah, if it's a multilingual workforce. By the way, there could be a safety item here, a safety issue. Does anybody see it? Relating to tools. I would focus on this tool. This is a file, it looks like, and it appears we've had to use electrical tape to do something with it. Maybe hold it together. The handle's bad. So again, by having the tools in a nice visible place, you can inspect them. And I would be looking at this tool to see if it's safe to use. Okay, one more example just to put it all together. This is a well-done 5S program right here. So what we can see is they've repainted and they've improved their lighting. Their floor is nice and shiny, which makes people want to work there more and also makes them want to clean up after themselves. Also difficult to maintain when you get a new tool. Yeah, so the shadow board, that is one of the problems. If the process changes, the shadow board can be out of date and then it's got to be remade. And there's no way around that. You have to have the discipline to remake the shadow board. But your 5S process should be identifying that as along with the Kaizen process, which we'll talk about. So here we are in the 5S example. So floor's clean. All their workstations are marked off to say this is where this job is done. You can see this is a portable device, but they marked it in such a way to indicate that's where it's stored when not in use. They've got a nice shadow board here that looks like it's well used. Everything's clean. There are a few opportunities for improvement. Why is this sitting here? Does it go underneath the stairs? If it does, let's mark it. Is there a better place for it? Is it needed to begin with? And then something here, you can't really make it out, but I suspect this is where they've placed their standard work documents for some of these pieces of equipment. So it tells the employee how the best, safest, highest quality way to use the lathe, for instance, here. That's probably what that is. Can also see some opportunities for improved machine guarding here, but that's a different session. So anyway, pretty good overall example of 5S. And remember, it's a continuous improvement process, right? So there's always opportunities to get better. All right, let's talk about standard work. So it's the best known and demonstrated method for producing a product or service. It's the way that we've learned to do the job best. We want to capture that. The benefits are documentation of the current process for all shifts, so we get the same product out of all shifts. Reductions in variability. Variability is bad. Easier training of new operators. Reductions in injuries and strains, which are kind of injury, but I guess that could be other types of strain as well. And a baseline for improvement activities. So that's what standard work does for you. Now, here's a little bit of a blurry example, but it's a decent example. So this is a standard work document. And a couple things jump out at you here. First of all, it's kind of colorful, right? It's not just words, although words are on it, but there's also pictures, number one. Most modern standard work documents have pictures embedded in them for the critical tasks. So we got some nice pictures here with some good labeling, got some numbers that relate to the steps to help operators understand the work. We've also got some color-coded symbols here. You can see the red cross is safety, the bright green diamond is quality, and the little blue dot, I guess, is a pro tip. And you can see that they've added these in some key places. Now, this one doesn't have any safety in it, but I've got an example of one that does. But what you can see here is what are the basic steps of the operation? What are the key parts of that? And then how does it relate to the actual piece of equipment that they're running here? And so what they do is they get their work teams together and they create this standard work together. Now, management is also involved in it. They have to approve it ultimately because it is, part of the responsibility of management to control the work. But we want to get as much information as we can out of the employees and take their advice and their suggestions because, again, they're doing the work. So this is a good basic example. Now, looking at another example, this one's kind of silly, how to make ramen noodles, but you can see we've got some safety steps in here. Number 10, specifically, drain water through the drain holes in the sink, both hands holding the cup at the side. A hand at the side avoids hot steam burning fingers, right? So we're telling them, hey, we're going to do this process over and over and over again, and we know that the hot water will burn your fingers if it comes in contact with your fingers. So great example of embedding safety into a standard work. And Lex says making ramen is critically important. I agree with you. It is. So how do you involve yourself in standard work? Well, they're always getting reviewed. There's always an effort to make sure they're up to date. Are there any continuous improvement activities? Is there a new safety hazard that's been identified? Often those will come through accidents and injuries. Maybe somebody doing the ramen noodle thing overheated it in the microwave and the water was really hot on the bottom. It's still kind of cold on top. And, you get that reaction with the water. And if you spill it on yourself, you burn the heck out of yourself. Maybe that got identified. We got to get a new safety step in there. Be part of the process of reviewing and updating standard work. Take time to learn the standard work, especially for the workstations that have the most hazards. Really get involved in that standard work and drive some improvements in it. The organization will appreciate that, and they'll appreciate your knowledge of lean manufacturing in that context. And then there's always auditing that goes on with that. Be part of the auditing. Make sure the standard work is still effective and that the employees are following it. Okay, Kaizen. So rapid improvement process is often considered to be the building block of all lean production methods. The focus is eliminating waste, improving productivity, achieving sustained continual improvement. Traditionally short-term brainstorming and implementation sessions intended to improve an existing process. They can be short-term, meaning we're going to take this one day and do it, or they can be a whole week. Sometimes they're even longer if it's a really complicated process. But the most effective ones I've found are that 1 to 3 day range where you really get in there and really look at the process. It's the operators, it's the supervisors, it's managers, it's other specialty groups like safety and injury prevention. We get involved in it. Typically, it's engaging employees, observe the process as it is today, map out the process in its current state. So now we're back off the floor, probably in a conference room looking at it. Identify opportunities for improvement, although you could map it out on the floor. And some companies are very focused on stay on the floor. Either one works. Map out the future state. What would it look like with all these improvements, and then go implement that. And most importantly, well, equally importantly, is measure. Did it achieve the improvements we thought? Are they safer? Is the quality better? Is the cycle time in the products reduced? All that's part of the Kaizen process. So participate in these events. If you hear of one getting formed, you want to be part of that. Utilize your knowledge of biomechanics and ergonomics to influence redesign of the process. All right, Gemba walks. I'm trying to get us through here. Gemba walks. So in the workplace, what the aim here is to go out and see what's actually happening on the floor. So pick a theme over here on the right-hand side. Typically, there's a small team of maybe 2 to 4 people that do this. Prepare your team, focus on the process, not the people. It's on improving the process. Now, people are part of the process, but not personalities. It's just body motion and that sort of thing. Number 4, be where the value stream is. What's the money maker of this process? What's the key thing that makes this product? Start with that. Make sure you really understand that. Record your observations. Make sure you've got other people out there. Hey, this is where the ATs can get involved, right? Be the extra pair of eyes. And then number 7, follow up. And of course, follow up means complete meaningful improvements from your Gemba. So as I said, Gemba means go to the work floor, go to the floor. And we're looking down here at the bottom, identify and rapidly implement improvements. So we're looking for improvements that can be done rapidly. Other improvements still matter, but the things that can be done quickly and have a big impact, those are the best. So participate in the Gemba walks, observe the work yourself, talk with employees and ask for their help in identifying opportunities for improvement. Of course, you're out there to improve the safety, health, and well-being of the employees. Identify resources the employees need to do their work safely. And you know, this is an important one here. Photos and videos of the workstation or conditions are powerful tools for improvement. And that cuts two ways. Number one, if it's a really good workstation, hey, give them some props for that, man, and taking a picture of it, showing it to management, and you know, demonstrating how well they've done, that's meaningful. On the other hand, if there's a lot of opportunities for improvement, nothing brings them out like a picture, just like the one we looked at of that maintenance workstation, right? I guarantee you throw that up in front of the supervisor and the work team of that area, and they're immediately going to go back and start trying to figure out ways to make that look better. So pictures and videos are really powerful tools for this. Okay, next thing is flexible workforce. So what this means is we want to allow people to rotate. We don't want them to be stuck in one job. Why would we not want them to be stuck in one job for 8 hours a day? What crosses your mind there? Repetitive motion. Yeah, number one. Overuse. Yes. Repetitive overuse. Absolutely. Also boring, right? Oh yeah, Lex, boring. Oh my God. If you've ever done some of those jobs where you're just putting a nut on a bolt for 8 hours, it is brutal. So we want to be able to rotate them around, to have a little bit of variety in their day, mentally and physically, right? From an anatomical perspective, different muscle groups. And this is all your all's bailiwick. So I don't need to lecture you on how to do that. But the point is, this is very much part of lean manufacturing, creating a flexible workforce. So what you see here is a typical Toyota U-shaped cell. So maybe they're making, I don't know, brake parts here. You know, it's got these roughly 10 steps. And what you can see here is instead of having one person man every table, which will be 10 people, doing the same thing over and over and over again, they've got 3 people manning multiple tables. Now, if you're in the union environment, this can get a little sticky, so be careful with that. You know, I don't want to get too far in the union thing, but they want to make sure their people aren't overworked. So that's where you can come back in, though, to say, okay, what does overwork mean? Well, it means, you know, the posture, the repetition, number of cycles, all that. You can help them understand whether it's truly overwork or not. But that's a whole different lecture. Bottom line, Toyota is using 3 people here instead of 10. These 3 people have variety in their day, and as a result, they're more productive. That, in a nutshell, is the flexible workforce. Multi-job training, job rotation, which you guys can set up to not only make the process more efficient, but better protect the employees from a rest and recovery standpoint, and work cells that enable fluid flexing of personnel. In other words, if this was all in a straight line, it's a lot harder for these people to rotate between these jobs because we have wasted motion there. Less wasted motion here. Okay, so how do you get involved? Determine the proper job rotation to vary body segment motion, cycle time, and force. That's you guys, right? That's what I would ask you guys to do for me. Insert it into the standard work so we make sure it happens consistently. Make sure we're including rest and stretching routines. Again, your all's area. All right, we're coming down to the end here. Tier meetings. So these are the weekly meetings, weekly or daily. If it's the floor level, the frontline personnel, it's a daily meeting at the start of each shift. And typically it's a stand-up. There's a board out in your workplace. They've got some key metrics up there, which include safety. They've got some key corrective activities that they're pursuing, which include safety. And they're going through that every day. Where are we? How are we doing with the stuff we've already identified? What do we need to do to improve things tomorrow? So they're looking at the last 24 hours worth of corrective and preventative actions, improvement, ideation, coming up with ideas, and a process schedule status. How are we on, you know, getting the product out the door that we all get our paycheck as a result of? So that's all part of a standard tier meeting. So tier 1 is typically the floor. Tier 4 is usually site level management or sometimes corporate management. And I've been involved in all these meetings over time. They create something called the cadence. And you guys probably know what a cadence is, but it's the drumbeat of production. And cadence is important. Everybody tries to align to that cadence and work to the rhythm that's being requested. And these daily meetings are an important part of that. And here's the bottom line. It's collaborating. It's escalating problems that cannot be solved at the floor level or beyond. It's sharing of successes and needs, and it's reporting of progress and results. That is the tier meeting process. And here's an example of one. See, this is obviously a food production facility based on the hairnets. You can see they've got their KPI board up here. They're speaking to it. This is really, I'm sure they're talking about the quality and the schedule there for the most part. Can't really see the safety in here, but it's here somewhere, I'm sure. And they're going to talk through all that. These meetings usually last between 5 and 15 minutes. They're not intended to be long brainstorming sessions. It's very quick. It's that cadence. But if these meetings are happening, you want to hit these a couple times a week. You want to be part of this because you're going to hear what's going on out there, and you're going to know where the problems are and where you can have an impact. Okay, participate in the meetings, bring up problems and potential solutions, assist in action items that are related to injury prevention and safety. The members of that tier group will appreciate your assistance in getting things done, because that's one of the things that comes up every day. And it is embarrassing to attend these tier meetings 2 or 3 days in a row and say, I can't get that one done. I didn't get it done. I didn't have time. I don't know how to do it. Those are all bad things. So if you can help them avoid having to say that, you're going to be worth your weight in gold. Okay, a couple minutes on Six Sigma and then we're done. Six Sigma is a focus on quality of the product or service and the reduction of variation. It is also called statistical problem solving, made famous by GE. The goal here is use statistics to measure quality in terms of defective products to 6 decimal places. So in other words, you're making products 99.99999% or properly or high quality. GE, Motorola was a big one of the original practitioners of it. Texas Instruments, Allied Signal, now Honeywell. Let's keep going. So I can't teach you all of this today. I just want you to know it. It all is based on this DMAIC process. Define the problem, measure the problem to make sure you truly understand the scope of the problem, then analyze the problem. Why is it happening based on our measurement and our definition? Then improve the problem. And then finally, make sure the improvements you've put in place are controlling it. And if not, more improvements, more control loops. You really want to focus on quick improvements where possible, but you may have more. You can see there's quite a few activities and tools available here. You can see Kaizen 5S. Those are some basic tools for it. Essentially, DMAIC teams are like the Kaizen team. Very similar process, except you go deeper into the process of using statistics to help you really sharply define the problem and what the best solution is. Somebody asked me which tools are most useful for ATs. It depends on the process, really. Participate in the DMAIC process. As being part of the team, you will be instructed on how to use the tools. So I couldn't do it for you here today, but as you get involved in the process at your work sites, they're going to teach you how to use the tools. Same thing, provide your unique perspective in there and contribute with your knowledge at each stage of the DMAIC process. Another example of a DMAIC chart, this is an Ishikawa chart for injury prevention. So it basically says there's 6 things that can create variation, or in this case, injuries. And you're going to define problems in each of these areas. I don't have time to take you through it, but you'll have this presentation so you can start with that. And okay, so coming to the end. So how to get started. Ask your client for Lean Six Sigma procedures or training materials to review. Fishbone, you got it, Tracy. Start participating in Lean Six Sigma activities as an observer. Maybe you don't know enough to contribute yet, but just get in the room and you'll learn. There are two good books that I've seen. One is Lean Six Sigma Pocketbook. This is a good one. And then, even though I know the title turns us off, but Lean Six Sigma for Dummies is a good place to start because you get some good basic understanding of the process. Okay, why does it matter? It's the language. Lean Six Sigma is the language of many work floors and businesses. When you speak their language, you have more influence. It drives systematic problem solving, data-driven, and somebody wants me to go back a slide. So this is the call to action. Did I go back the slide or I went the wrong way, didn't I? There we go. You guys wanted those books, didn't you? Okay, it drives systematic problem solving, data-driven decision-making, cross-functional collaboration, resource optimization, and standardization. These are all critical words in industry. Okay, so it improves your influence, having this knowledge base. You are better at driving continuous improvement, which is a valuable skill to your employer or a client. And you create a safer, healthier, more respectful workplace for the employees that are involved in it. And I'll leave you with this quote: "An incident is just the tip of the iceberg, a sign of much larger problem below the surface." So this guy wrote a book, Don Brown, Waiting to Live. And it's kind of an interesting book. It really talks about the kind of the psychological, spiritual part of life and work. And it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day problems, but what is the big picture? So I thought it was an interesting book. All right. I'm glad to talk further with you. Here's my contact info. Shelby, I'll send the presentation to you so you can distribute it however you guys are planning to do that. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. So stick that in your LinkedIn invite and send it to me. I have a website that I put some thoughts on every now and then. You can follow me on Twitter.